Back, Christopher Scholtes, the father charged in the hot car death of his 2-year-old daughter, Parker, was found dead from an apparent suicide. This is according to prosecutors in Pima County. Here's more now from our affiliate Scripps News Tucson reporter Craig Smith.
Everything was ready here at Pima County Superior Court to take Christopher Scholtes into custody for the death of his 2-year-old daughter in a hot car. He was already headed for 20 to 30 years in prison. But when the time came for him to stand up and go into custody, he wasn't here.
Please, baby, please. Anything.
Just let them focus.
A Marana police body camera caught Christopher Scholtes as medical crews tried to save his daughter. Investigators say the day 2-year-old Parker Scholtes died, she spent almost 3.5 hours strapped in a car seat in temperatures well over 100 degrees, while her father sat in the living room drinking, playing video games, and watching pornography. He was charged with first-degree murder. This is Christopher Scholtes as he looked in one of many hearings before the one where he was to go into custody pending formal sentencing. After rejecting a plea deal 9 months ago, Scholtes agreed to accept one after all. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Sentencing was set for November 21st with a punishment range of 20 to 30 years in prison with no chance of parole. Even though he had not been formally sentenced, his guilty plea made prison time a certainty. Scholtes was to appear in Judge Kimberly Ortiz's court to be taken into custody pending the formal sentencing. He did not appear. Judge Ortiz took the bench, then immediately recessed the court. A few minutes later, prosecutors and Scholtes' defense attorney hustled out of an apparent meeting in chambers. None of the attorneys would explain what happened. Then we learned the Maricopa County medical examiner lists Scholtes as dead. Maricopa County because Scholtes moved his wife and 2 daughters there after Parker Scholtes died. The Maricopa medical examiner has shared no details on how Christopher Scholtes died. It could be 3 months before autopsy results are available. At Pima Superior Court, Craig Smith, KGUN 9.
Now let's take a look at the terms of that plea agreement that Scholtes accepted. It would be sentences running consecutively, meaning one after another, 20 to 30 max of flat time, no eligibility for early release for him. He rejected the initial plea offer of 10 to 24 years in prison. So what he was agreeing to was really more than what was initially offered. He waited so long, really, to the eve of trial. Pima County District Attorney Laura Conover addressed the media on Wednesday and had this message for Parker Scholtes' older sisters.
May you be surrounded by love. May you receive all of the support you deserve and need, and then some. May you know and believe that you can survive and thrive.
So with this development, what are the lingering questions in this case? Here to talk about it, criminal defense attorney Michael J. Brown and criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips. All right, so let's just start with just your initial reactions, and then we can get into any more legalities here. But this is one of those cases where just when you think it can't get more tragic, it does. Michael, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, the case is horrific, Julie. You know, this is a guy who allegedly not only did it to these 3 young children on the second marriage, but apparently did it on the first go-round to his other, I think, daughters from a prior relationship or marriage. What's really troubling to me, and I looked at Arizona as somewhat of a more conservative state, you know, in New York, I could imagine if he took a plea, initially being arraigned even on these charges, posting bail or having bail set. And then once he entered a plea of guilty, I'm surprised that the judge did not remand him pending sentencing. So the fact that he was free, even though there may have been significant bail, that's somewhat surprising to me because the risk of flight is tremendous. And obviously the presumption of innocence is defeated once he entered that plea of guilty. So that's something that struck me right off the bat.
That's an excellent thing you just brought up, Michael. You're right. So for anybody unfamiliar, that is odd that he wasn't remanded right there. He was given a report date, and so he was set to report and missed the date, and now we know why. So thank you for that. John, tell me your thoughts when you heard this awful news.
You know, you never really want to try to defend the horror of an action like this because the children died, right? But this man lost his children by his own hand, by his own actions, then lost in criminal court and really lost in the court of public opinion because this was highly, highly, highly discussed, particularly in his own neighborhood. And so, you got to look at the overall mental health here and kind of how this progressed and how clearly there was something wrong with him. And Michael makes, the foundational and fundamental point that, maybe somebody should have put the handcuffs on him right at the moment, that he was guilty and finish the plea. But, here we are, and there's no closure for anybody here. It's just more trauma.
Right. And I think I see how the report date happened because he was out on bond on this case. I think perhaps because it was his own daughter who was deceased. We think about, gosh, what's a worse punishment than that? Can't think of one, right? Any amount of prison time and can never bring her back. So I suppose I see how this happened. But gosh, Michael, going back in time, when he rejected the first offer on this homicide of 10 to 24, I was shocked he rejected that. What do you think? Do you think that was a good offer that perhaps he should have taken the first time around?
Well, in retrospect, and we're playing, obviously, Monday morning quarterback, certainly, yes, it would have been a good, favorable disposition because what happened here is he was playing chicken and he rejected the offer. They went forward. The prosecutor withdrew the offer, and then he realized, I don't think this looks good. I don't think I have a good shot. And then he did his best to get another plea offer, but now it gets worse. It didn't get better. So, yeah, in retrospect, he should have accepted and grabbed that offer because he ended up taking a worse offer.
Right, right. And in the court of public opinion, John, what do you think are the questions that are still lingering right now about this case?
How these children are going to be, the surviving children and the family, this is horrible. And it's just, there's no words, and I'm very familiar with these hot car death cases, and they're so preventable, but this gentleman had so many issues prior that somebody should have said something at a stronger level sooner. And we all are our own shepherds. So, it's just, we've got to protect these kids. I've said it now in 2 segments. Like, we've got to protect our kids.
Yeah, got to do better. Absolutely, John. Michael, what do you think that people would have wanted to hear from him at sentencing?
I think they would have wanted some excuse or explanation for what he did. It was callous, Julian. If you looked at the video, the way I looked at that video is he was not sympathetic. He wasn't showing that he was sorry for what he did. He actually was very matter of fact, and that was troubling to me as I watched it. So I think this is the father of a child, a beautiful young girl. I think the public, in terms of the public perception, would have wanted some answer. Were you high on drugs? Did you have a mental disease or defect? Did you have a troubled childhood? Why would you treat your child in that fashion? Because we treat our animals better. So why would you do that? And I think that's what they were looking for at the sentencing.
Yeah, you're so right. So well said.